The Andy Pollin Show.
We got to go after this with everything we got, thinking they're going to come with everything they got.
I'll start off by saying I'm bored, I'm broke, and I'm back.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630 starts right now.
The morning after the Super Bowl. We only get one of these a year, so you don't want to screw it up. And I hope not to over the next 2 hours. Got a lot of tape to play from last night, last few days. It was a great ending to last night's Super Bowl. I don't think it's one of the great Super Bowls of all time because for almost 3 quarters it was a stupor bowl. You know, turnovers, bad decisions, bad play. Not good. It was a bad Super Bowl. That's why we saw a lot of Taylor Swift, because CBS was, I'm sure, worried about losing eyeballs. But then we had an incredible ending last night. And I think it's just another example of just how good Patrick Mahomes is. We have these generational athletes from time to time. We've had them mostly in basketball, whether it was Magic Johnson leading the Lakers in the 5 championships that they won in the 1980s, or whether it was Michael Jordan who took the torch and won the 6 titles with the Chicago Bulls. But they're just certain guys that you look at them and say, how can you bet against them? I remember Pat Riley saying this when he was coaching the Heat, and they lost in the Eastern Conference Finals to Chicago. I don't remember which one of the second three-peat teams it was, but remember Riley had left the Lakers, had gone to the Knicks, didn't win there, goes to the Miami Heat, takes over as coach there, and it was before they got Shaq, and he just said, you know, as long as Michael Jordan's in the league, nobody else is going to win. It's just the way it is. Now, it's not quite that way in football, and you've got a lot more things than just the quarterback. But with Patrick Mahomes and time on the clock, it's never over. And there was this feeling throughout the game that San Francisco was dominating, especially early on, and they said it both in the booth and in the halftime show that San Francisco was dominating on both lines of scrimmage. But they weren't able to pull away. And as long as you weren't able to pull away from the Chiefs, that gave Mahomes time. And when you give Mahomes time and opportunity, as he had in that last overtime drive, he's going to win the game. And he's 28 years old, and listen to these numbers. He's a 2-time NFL MVP, 2-time first-team All-Pro, 6 straight AFC championship games, 3-time Super Bowl champion, 3-time Super Bowl MVP. He's got a $500 million contract and is probably the biggest bargain in sports. He is playing the most important position in sports right now, and he's playing it at a level that I don't think we've ever seen. Now, you could say, you know, Tom Brady, and I've said this myself, Tom Brady's got 7 Super Bowl championships. So Mahomes has to do what he just did in winning the 3 again, and he's still 1 short. So in terms of championships, he's got a long way to go. But in terms of playing the position, it's just absolutely unbelievable how much better he is than anybody else, and even Brady. Because Brady couldn't run like this. Brady made great throws, and he had great leadership ability, which Mahomes has. He not only plays at a high level, but he raises the level of everybody else because they have to live up to his standard of play. And the way he took that team down the field on that last drive, it was something to behold. And we're going to see this guy for a while, you know, knock for Micah here, that he stays healthy and can continue to do what he's done in his last 6 years. You know, he's been in the league 7 years. He hardly played at all in his first year, which probably helped him. I think in the long run, that will probably have been a good thing, as it probably was for Tom Brady, as he sat behind Drew Bledsoe in his first year. But what he is doing on this stage and the stage of the Super Bowl, which he has been now a Super Bowl regular, 6 straight AFC championship games and 3 Super Bowl championships within the last 5 years, and another appearance and a loss to Tom Brady along the way, which is, I guess, something he'll always have to live with. You know, that's the one thing he couldn't do. Couldn't beat Brady in the AFC championship game where they lost to the Patriots. And although with the rule changes now in the postseason, who knows if he would have gotten a shot in that game. But with the rules in place, Brady took him down the field and won that game in Kansas City and won the Super Bowl. But he lost to Brady and the Bucs, and now how can you count him out for next year? And if they do three-peat, that's a mountain that nobody has climbed so far. The only team to make it to 3 straight Super Bowls was the Miami Dolphins of the 70s. But in the first one, they got their doors blown off by Dallas. That was a Dallas team that was seething mad after losing to the Colts on that Jim O'Brien field goal the year before, and they took it out on the inexperienced Dolphins and blew them out. But the Dolphins won the next 2. But there has never been a team that has won 3 straight. The only team to make it to 4 straight was the Buffalo Bills, and they lost all 4. And I think that is a great accomplishment, but they didn't win any of them. If they win 3 straight, then you're talking about a mountain that has been insurmountable, and maybe the Chiefs are that good. That's what they're talking about right now, and they're talking the talk. Let's see if they walk the walk, because the ability to get it back together, as Nick Saban has said, the biggest enemy of success is success, that you start to relax a little bit. You start to feel good about yourself. You have to put this season away and immediately start thinking about the next one. All right, let's talk about dynasties and where this team ranks. We've got the Pittsburgh Steelers of the 1970s. To me, that's the ultimate dynasty. 4 Super Bowl championships in 6 years. We had the Dallas Cowboys of the 90s under Jimmy Johnson, and Barry Switzer, who was basically coaching Jimmy's team, but they won 3 of them in 4 years. We had the Patriots. That's really like a 2-decade dynasty. San Francisco was a great team under Bill Walsh. He won 3 and the 4th right after he left. That's a great dynasty as well. But this one, you got to start thinking about it, because it's been 20 years since a team won back-to-back, and it's only happened a handful of times in NFL history, and now they have the opportunity for 3 in a row. So here's Andy Reid last night on that subject.
Yeah, it's a little bit surreal, but back-to-back is rare for this football team and this organization. So it's I got asked so many times, is it a dynasty? I don't know what a dynasty. I mean, you guys, you have the thesaurus. So I mean, you figure it out. But it's a great win. It's because I know how hard it is to do, and then how hard the season was, the ups and downs of the season, and how proud I am of the guys for just hanging with each other, staying positive with each other. The defense, the young guys grew up, but nobody ever pointed fingers at the offense when the offense was growing, and it all kind of came together during the playoffs and worked out well. And great leaders, and Patrick and Chris and Trav, and the job that they've done. They're passionate players, man, and I love that. And even if they chest bump me to the other side of the 50, I mean, I appreciate it. I just love that the guy wants to play and wants to be in there playing, and he knows I love that. So he makes me feel young.
Yeah, he's throwing it out there before he really gets pressed on it. That's an incident that happened in the game that if it turns out the other way, if San Francisco wins, that's what everybody's pointing to today. See? There was trouble on the sidelines. Travis Kelce came over to Andy Reid, almost knocked him over. He was so mad. There's tension there. There's hidden problems there with the Kansas City Chiefs, but they won the game. This is Reid with his take on what happened.
Yeah, he caught me off balance. I wasn't watching. Cheap shot, but that's all right. He did good. He was really coming over just put me in. I'll score. So that's really what it was. Well, I love that. I mean, it's not the first time, so I appreciate him.
Yeah, in the heat of the battle, things happen. Things go on during games. I remember talking to Matt Millen about this. He said he once threw a phone, these were big phones, not the cell phones that they have now. He threw a phone on the sidelines. People get mad in the heat of battle, and here's a competitor who got mad. This was after the game. Both Patrick Mahomes and Jason Kelce on the ESPN said about that.
I mean, was it, hey, I need the ball, I can help us win? What was that about?
Man, it was, I'm gonna keep it between us unless my mic'd up tells the world, but I was just telling him how much I love him.
No, but for real, though, I mean, that moment right there, that speaks to the team that we are. Right. Everybody loves it. Everybody loves the game, wants to compete. and Coach Reid wants to compete.
Yeah.
If you watch out, you might get a little bit too. So I mean, that's just the type of mentality we've always had. And that's why we can win games like we won today.
He mentioned the mic'd up, and when the NFL Films treatment of this comes out, and I guess there could be something even within a week about this. Be interesting if that's included as to what he said to Andy Reid at that time. I mean, Reid knew the cameras were on him. He wasn't going to get worked up about it. Somebody came over and restrained Kelce a little bit. And, now it's something that you laugh about. At the time, it looked pretty serious, and they were talking about it at the half. Oh, that's a bad look. I think it was Phil Simms who said that. That's a bad look. Now it's a hearty har, and let's see how it's handled by NFL Films if, in fact, I don't know. That could be their choice, or it could be the Chiefs' choice, or it could be Kelce's choice. There's going to be some editorial control over that, I believe. All right, the San Francisco side. Poor Kyle Shanahan. Kyle Shanahan is kind of where Andy Reid was in Philadelphia, although Shanahan has made it to 2 Super Bowls. Andy Reid only made it to 1, but he made it to multiple NFC championship games and lost I think 4 of them, 1 of them or 2 of them at home. He had his struggles and didn't win his first Super Bowl until he was in his 60s. Now here's Kyle Shanahan in his 40s, 0 for 2 in Super Bowls as a head coach, 0 for 3 when you count the Atlanta disaster where they blew the 28-3 lead, and he got the bulk of the blame on that. Dan Quinn kind of skates on that. It was Kyle Shanahan for electing to pass when they had an opportunity to run out the clock or to run off a lot of the clock with the running game, and he chose not to do that. This was the painful news conference that Kyle Shanahan had to have after last night's loss.
I mean, we all hurt. I mean, everyone knows how it feels, and don't have a lot of words for it, but obviously we're hurting. Our team's hurting, but that's how it goes when you put yourself out there. I'm real proud of our guys for no regrets with our team. I thought our guys just played so hard today. Not everything was perfect by no means, but I'm going to lose with a group of guys. It's do with those guys anytime, and we'll take some time. We'll get over this, and come back next year ready to go.
Yeah, now there's second guessing. There's plenty of second guessing on what Kyle Shanahan did. One, not electing to give the ball enough to Christian McCaffrey, although McCaffrey averaged only 3.5 yards a carry. He caught a bunch of passes and did some incredibly hard running, but they got away, many thought, from the run too soon. And then the question of what they did in the overtime. The rules are different now, and they had to explain it to the players over and over that both teams touched the ball. So even if San Francisco were to go down the field and score a touchdown, you would still have the opportunity for Kansas City to match, and then you keep going. So many looked at it, and I think I feel this way too, that when San Francisco won the flip for overtime, rather than electing to receive as you would in a traditional overtime situation, with the rules change and changing more towards the way it is in college, where they almost always defer on an overtime flip, Shanahan elected to take the ball. And this was his explanation as to why they did that.
This is something we talked about with, that none of us have a ton of experience of it, but we went through all the analytics and talked with those guys, and we just thought it'd be better. We wanted the ball third. If both teams matched and scored, we wanted to be the ones who had the chance to go win, and we got that field goal, so we knew we had to hold them to at least to a field goal, and if we did, then we felt it was in our hands after that.
There's some merit to the idea of having it for the third time, that both teams go back and forth, let's say, with field goals. But I think what you do is you really can make a decision as to what you do. And if you hold them to a field goal, you have an opportunity to either play for a field goal and keep going, which you probably don't want to do because then you give them the ball back and then it is a true sudden death. But if they score a field goal, then you go down and you score a touchdown for sure, which is what Kansas City did. Or if you stop them, then all you have to do is play for a field goal. And that's not the way he played it. Travis Kelce, very, very loud on the podium when they were accepting the trophy. A little bit more subdued by the time he got to talk to Scott Van Pelt last night on ESPN.
You've had years where you've won these and it looks easy. I know it isn't, but it appeared so. This felt different. The journey was different to get here. The struggles were seemingly many. How does that add to the satisfaction of it?
Man, it means everything. I couldn't be more proud of these guys for the fight, the heart, rallying together when everybody was counting us out. When Vegas had the odds against us, we came into Vegas and beat them, baby. And it's a beautiful scenario, knowing that everything that this team's been through, man. And man, I hope we can keep this team so we can do it all over again.
You and I have talked, not on the air, but just about the idea of the appreciation of what it is you all get to do, because this is rare, right? This doesn't happen a lot, and I know you're present in that, and you understand that. And you don't get unlimited runway, any of us, to do the things we do. So given where you are in this journey, not just as a player, Travis, but in life, how does that add to your personal enjoyment of this?
Man, I stopped chasing stats a long time ago and started chasing legacy and what my heart was at and where I wanted to be as a professional, man. And I couldn't be more proud to just be a part of a team with these guys and be a part of the greatness every single day and the drive every single day, man. This game is so beautiful when you do things the right way and you put in the grind, you put in the hard work, and you reap those rewards, man. It's just it's a beautiful atmosphere, and I just couldn't be more proud of the guys. And even at this point in my career, man, winning makes you feel like a little kid all over again, baby.
I bet it does. And I can't remember if it was on New Heights, your very successful podcast with your brother, or if it was in one of the media sessions this week where you were honest about wanting this maybe more than anything you'd ever wanted in your life. And given that it's still scoreless and it's tense and there's fumbles, like, was that what the emotion we saw out of you on the sideline there early? Like, I mean, the Yeti was roaring. What was that all about?
Man, I was fired up, man. I was fired up, and we weren't hitting on all cylinders. And I had to give Big Red a love tap there and let him know that we were all here fighting for him no matter what.
Okay.
Yeah, you know it. I just had to tell him how much I love him real quick. And I put so much trust in him and how he goes about being a head coach, as a leader. He's one of the best leaders in the game, man. And I can't thank him enough for giving me opportunities year in, year out. And this third one, or this second one back-to-back, the third one overall, baby, this one's for him, no doubt.
At some point, you know, there's so many layers in this, and there's so many things that happen, but in the end, it's hard to ignore that 15 gets the ball and the guy just doesn't lose a lot. You and I have talked a lot about that over this run. How do you frame what that man does when the ring is right there in front of you guys?
He's the best football player we've ever seen, baby. And I'm so dang on fortunate that he landed here in Kansas City while we were starting to build this beast of an organization, because he's absolutely catapulted us into another stratosphere, and the best to ever do it, man. Crown him. What he's done this year, what he's done over the course of his career up to this point, nobody's ever done. And I'm just, I couldn't be happier for him, and I love my guy, man.
All right, I'm going to close with this. You're in a city that's built to stay awake all night and keep it going until you guys decide you're done. In general, where does the rest of this night go for you, Travis? You and your family and your people?
Oh, follow your nose, baby. You're going to find some fun out here. It's going to be an absolute blast. The Vegas atmosphere was electric all week, man. I couldn't thank the fans for both the Niner Gang and Chiefs Kingdom for showing up, and every NFL fan out there, man. You guys made this so special for me, and I'm about to go party my tail off.
Yeah, it's uncharted territory because there's never been a Super Bowl in Vegas before. It's a little bit different post-game there than I would say Indianapolis, right? Even Dallas. Places like Dallas in the snow and the ice storm that took place there. So we may find out some things that happened overnight in Vegas. We'll have to see. Patrick Mahomes is going to be on a plane very shortly, headed to Disneyland. I think it's Disneyland rather than Disney World, one or the other. But as the Super Bowl MVP, he gets to go there with his wife and his two young kids and have a really good time. Kelce, last night, not much of a factor in the first half. Didn't get the ball, but wound up with 8 catches in the second half, 9 for the game, almost 100 yards, 10.3 yards a catch, and really was a difference maker. George Kittle, tight end for San Francisco. A lot of people looked at this and said, looks like an interesting matchup between the two tight ends. One or the other could play a key role here. Well, it turned out to be Kelce, who was somewhat invisible in the first half, as was Kittle, who wound up for the game. 2 catches for 4 yards, came out late with a shoulder injury. They put a harness on him, brought him back out on the field, or back to the sidelines. I don't even know if he got back on the field. And, there's many things to pick apart on this game, and we could go, just on decisions for the next couple of hours. But Kelce was involved in a play that, again, had the game gone a different way if San Francisco had won, much like the sideline altercation that he had with his coach. Andy Reid really screwed up on this one. The Chiefs had the ball at the 2-yard line, and Kelce caught a 9-yard pass on 2nd and 10, and it appeared that he had the first down. Didn't get the first down. Reid did not challenge, called a timeout, burning a valuable second-half timeout, and Pacheco was stopped on 3rd and 1. Chiefs punted, and if that turns out that's a pivotal point in the game, and San Francisco, which they were never able to do, step on the Chiefs' neck, then Andy Reid is like, oh, okay, well, Andy Reid's 65. Maybe he doesn't have his fastball anymore. It's amazing. Just a few plays can change not just the outcome of the game, but how players and coaches are viewed, even forever and ever. That's how those things kind of work out from time to time. We'll get to much more on the Super Bowl, much more on the Chiefs and the chances of the three-peat and all that. But there was some yak coming out of the Super Bowl this past week and weekend. Jason Wright on the NFL Network on the Stadium will play what he had to say about that. And Chick Hernandez landed an exclusive with Josh Harris, which ran last night and this morning. We'll get to the highlights of that and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
Oh, to the victors go the spoils. Andy Reid didn't win his first Super Bowl till he was 60 years old. Now he's 65, and he's got 3, and he's being lauded as one of the great coaches of all time, and deservedly so. Kyle Shanahan had an opportunity to change the narrative on his career. He's obviously become one of the great young coaches in the game, had the 49ers in the Super Bowl for the second time in 5 years, but he lost. He lost the game, and he's being second-guessed on overtime. That Kansas City knew the rules. The players talked about how they were schooled over and over again, and this is a report from the Ringer today that had the Chiefs, if San Francisco, which won the flip and elected to get the ball, if they had scored a touchdown instead of kicking a field goal on their overtime possession, Chris Jones, defensive tackle for the Chiefs, said that the Chiefs would have gone for 2 if they had to come from 7 down instead of 3 down, and ultimately won the game on a touchdown. But if they needed a touchdown just to stay in it, they were going to go for 2 and try and win it there. They didn't have to do that because San Francisco kicked a field goal. Now, the Kyle Shanahan explanation as to why they took the ball when the new rules are in playoffs and overtime that both teams get to possess the ball no matter what the first team does with their possession, whether it's a touchdown or not, that they still get an opportunity to get the ball. Players on San Francisco tell the Ringer that they were unsure of the new overtime rules, while the Chiefs were prepared over and over again. So that's another mark against Kyle. Not that he's in any danger of getting fired or anybody thinks he's a bad coach, but you got to cross all the T's and dot all the I's, and maybe they didn't do that. All right, let's get back to the local picture here as Super Bowl is now over with, and the next order of business is, of course, the draft. What are the Commanders going to do in that? And then there's the ongoing stadium issue, which we'll get to. Jason Wright, who I'd really not heard from much since Josh Harris bought the team. He was very blabby prior to Harris, but that was seen as something was kind of necessary since Dan Snyder didn't speak. But I often thought he made a fool of himself on things that he said, and the things that he did were really embarrassing, including the way they handled the Sean Taylor number retirement. They put out a crest and listed championship years as being 1988, 1992, and 1983. Those were all years, calendar years in which they won Super Bowls, but those were not Super Bowl seasons, and they had to change that. He's very, very sloppy in what he has done, and I thought, that they're going to get somebody in there that they want. Well, he's still on the job, and he's back to yakking again. So Jason Wright shows up on the NFL Network this past weekend and uses the opportunity to pat himself on the back.
We led the league in attendance growth. We led the league in new sponsorship business. We led the league in suite sales. And so the fan base is coming back. there's hope and optimism and real facts behind excitement for the football side. So we're in a good spot, and it feels really good.
Now, let's examine this. They led the league in ticket increase sales. Well, the base was so unbelievably low that they couldn't really help that. And, the local tickets, that's still up for debate as to how many they're selling, because a lot of the games were, especially like the Dallas game, the Philadelphia game, it was all the other team there. Led the league in suite sales. Well, they have all the suites available. Now, a lot of places have suites sold. They don't turn over. So they had a lot of that. This is about what's happening now in terms of what they're doing to get a new stadium and what they're going to do with the current stadium. Again, Jason Wright on the NFL Network.
Right now, today, you can expect a ton of investment from this ownership group into our current stadium. It's not just waiting for the future. They know that the right thing to do by our fans is to invest and make our current stadium a world-class place, a place where we have new modern things for folks to engage with, new premium areas, better food, better ingress, egress, all of that stuff, and they're putting a bunch of money into it. But then for the future, we know that we have a unique opportunity in the nation's capital to do an iconic stadium that's technologically advanced, that creates home field advantage, and that gets us back to the spirit of a championship legacy that we've had in this organization in 5 world championships. And that is probably the most important thing I work on every day. And we have great partners across D.C., Maryland, and Virginia who will help us to find the right place to make our new home.
So he's leaving open the possibility that any of the 3 sites could have Maryland, Virginia, D.C. But then he was, now it's a hypothetical, so you have to keep that in mind. But it was about the idea that one day Washington will host a Super Bowl. It's interesting too. There was a time when you had to have 80,000 people in order to host a Super Bowl. And I always thought San Diego was a great site. I went to 3 Super Bowls there. I love San Diego as a host city. But the stadium that they played in, Jack Murphy Stadium, didn't hold enough people, and I think it may have been over 70 for a Super Bowl, which they said wasn't enough. Like, you want to be as close to 90,000, or maybe it was 80,000 that you could get to, and they weren't going to get there. Attendance last night was only 60,000, and that tells you how new stadiums are being built. And when the Redskins left RFK and went to FedEx Field, which sat 78,000, a lot of people said, "Oh, goody, 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 more tickets available." Well, there's not going to be any more 78,000 seats built. There's going to be smaller stadiums, and it won't necessarily hurt your ability to get a Super Bowl. Weather might be a factor here, but size of stadium, wherever it's built, is not going to be an issue. So on the hypothetical, this was Wright asked about D.C. hosting a Super Bowl.
I think the Super Bowl in the nation's capital would be iconic. Yeah. It'd probably be at the same temperature it is here right now in Vegas, so we don't need to worry about the weather as much any longer.
That's right.
But I think it would be iconic. It's the place. It is truly the seat of power for the world.
Yeah.
It's a place where all the brands want to be present. It's where you actually have iconic views and family experiences that you can't get anywhere else. And so when we do get a new stadium done and it is world class in the way that this ownership group will demand, we'd love to welcome everybody there, I'm sure.
Now, what he's describing, iconic sites, yada, 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 that's not Landover. That's where Maryland, if it stays in Maryland, that's where it's going to be. And if it's going to be in Virginia, where's it going to be? Out near Dulles Airport? So, sounds like the lean is towards D.C. Now, he's not going to have any decisions in this. This is all going to be up to ownership. But that's the lean now. And the district has to do the same thing. Now that Ted is ready to yank the Wizards and the Caps out of there, it's incumbent upon the district to make a deal. I'm going to play other parts of this conversation in the next hour. But last night and this morning, Channel 9 aired an exclusive interview that Chick Hernandez got with Josh Harris. And Harris was asked about the stadium situation. He's attempting to build an arena for the 76ers in Philadelphia. So this was Chick last night with Josh Harris on that process and following up with the Jason Wright comments about how great it would be in the district. This is what Harris had to say to Chick about the stadium situation.
Each site has its own nuances in terms of the politics, the site itself. Is it good for football? What does it do to the area? How do you do it? And so all that stuff is ongoing. So we're working hard.
What have you learned from your Philadelphia process that you can apply here?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, what I've learned a lot. I've learned that you have to sell a stadium idea. You're saying in the context of the stadium? Mm-hmm. Yeah, the city. Cities have a lot to say about arenas and stadiums, and so it starts with, it's not just a real estate project. It starts with a process where you have to educate the city on what you're trying to accomplish, and then get them on board and supporting it.
Right.
And I think that's a big important thing. So the politics of it matter.
Yeah, a lot of politics.
I've learned that.
Yeah, a little pain in the butt.
Yeah, it's nothing. All good things. Nothing excellent comes easy.
Sure. And in Philadelphia, I think it's no cost to the taxpayers. Can that work here in this area?
Yeah, we're looking at all that. I mean, obviously, we're trying to shoulder as much of the burden as we can. Obviously, the arenas and stadiums are way different price tags, but we're looking hard at how we, all of us are fortunate, and we want to shoulder as much of the burden as we can.
But they're businessmen, and they're not just going to pay. They're looking for the jurisdictions to put in some money. At one time, Virginia was willing to pony up $1 billion. Then they reduced it to 300, and then they said, "Oh, we're just bidding against ourselves, and nobody wants to deal with Dan Snyder, so we're out." We'll see where this process goes. But you got the combination of Jason Wright saying they're going to dump a lot of money into FedEx Field, which they should, because they're going to probably be there another 5 to 6 years. Even when you break ground, you're talking 3 years until the stadium is built, and they don't even have a spot right now. So it's going to take some time. So you're looking at dumping hundreds of millions of dollars into FedEx Field, which is a dump right now. I don't know how much lipstick you can put on that pig and make it a place where people will definitely want to go. But it'll help. It'll help. I mean, it was a cesspool left behind by Dan Snyder because he didn't care, and he treated his customer base so poorly with open sewage pipes and railings that collapsed, and just an awful mess. And so it's going to take a lot to fix that up. But they didn't really have time. Remember, the sale wasn't approved until late July. They're playing an exhibition game there within a month. So now you got the full off season. They're probably already doing some things now, and whatever they do in the upcoming months to get ready for next August, it's going to be, I think, and I would hope, a lot better than it's been. Shifting back to the Super Bowl, and we'll have plenty more yak about that over the next hour and a half or so. But I wanted to get to this. This was Louis Riddick, who's a really smart guy, a really good analyst for ESPN. And he talked to Scott Van Pelt last night after the game from the box. And Riddick's take on, and this is really kind of forgotten in everything that happened here, with the comeback of the Chiefs coming from 10 points down to take the lead and then winning the game in overtime. That's what we focus on. But San Francisco had their chances. They were dominating this game and couldn't close. And this was Riddick with SVP on that, and also on the greatness of Patrick Mahomes. Again, last night on ESPN, Scott Van Pelt with Louis Riddick.
This Niners defense is doing a great job. They're bottling up the Chiefs. They've got the lead. They get a pick to start the second half. Don't do anything with it. A great punt. Get the ball back. Don't do anything with it. How critical was that stretch of time where they had a chance to perhaps create a lead that might have been insurmountable and didn't?
I mean, it's very significant. It's kind of like one of the underlying themes of the game. Most people will remember is the fact that in the end, Patrick Mahomes makes a great play after a drive where he converts on a 4th and 1, and he's sitting in the gun and he runs for it. But the fact of the matter is the Chiefs' defense really stiffened up, Scott, in the red zone in particular. I think about, the overtime possession where Chris Jones kind of alters Brock Purdy's throwing lane and he isn't able to maybe complete a pass that may have been a touchdown in the end zone that may have forced this game into a double overtime type of situation. And it was the Chiefs defense time and time again, especially in the red area, where these guys really tightened down and battened down the hatches And when it got to third down in the red area in particular, that's where Steve Spagnuolo really went to work. Every time up here in the booth, we said, look, here's the time where pressure is coming. They are going to absolutely force Brock Purdy to speed up his process and make a perfect play. And look, he made some great plays in this football game, but he wasn't able to make the perfect play at the perfect time against some of the pressures that they dialed up. And you have to tip your cap to Kansas City's defense because you know what? It's been that way all season long. They hold down the fort long enough for Patrick to figure out, along with the rest of the offense, how we can make enough plays to win football games in critical moments.
You and I had a real fun talk the other day off air in Las Vegas about us and media and our inability at times to find the nuance, right? It's just the thing that's sort of the headline that screams the loudest. But when Patrick Mahomes goes down the field and does what he does in this case, the guy you dubbed the Maserati early on, I'm willing to listen to any and all that anyone has to say about him. What's fair, what's reasonable, Louis, to say about Patrick Mahomes already in his career?
Well, I'm going to correct you. I called him the Ferrari. I called somebody else the Maserati.
Ferrari, Maserati, I get confused.
No. But you know what? It didn't work out with the other guy, so I'm not even going to mention that. But I'll tell you this. What stands out to me about him is when you talk about force multipliers, when you talk about guys who tangibly affect the performance of other players, the level of accountability, the level of preparation, their level of attention to detail in critical moments, in the way that they affect it is they don't want to be the guy to mess up or let down the guy who they know is going to come through in those critical moments. We talk about those kind of leaders all the time. We talk about those kind of players that ideally that's who we're looking for, ideally who we're almost like it's some kind of mythological creature that doesn't really exist. Well, now it exists. It truly exists right now. We just saw it again tonight in Patrick Mahomes. I guess I would crystallize it and really kind of sum it up by saying this. He has such an effect on this organization, not just on the football field, but off the football field, in the way that they prepare, the way they scout, the way they practice, the way they play games, the way they win Super Bowls, that he is an absolute bargain to the Kansas City Chiefs at $500 million. There's nobody probably in the history of the game I'd count on more than him because of his combination of physical ability and mental ability and ability to get everyone else to raise their game. It's unbelievable to watch.
And that's why, well said by Louis Riddick, who, again, is so smart on these things. This is why you have to keep swinging for a quarterback. You know, I've seen some things, draft projections like, oh, the Commanders will take Marvin Harrison and build a team and wait for other opportunities. No, you're drafting at the top of a quarterback-rich draft. You may not get up to number one. The Bears may want too much for Caleb Williams, and you're not willing to do that. But if it's Drake May, if it's somebody else that you identify, you got to do it, because when you find one of these guys, which Kansas City has done, look at what your organization looks like, and look at the value that he brings for a contract of $500 million. So well put by Louis Riddick about how he raises the level of everybody else. And it's not like, if you watch The Last Dance with Michael Jordan, there was a fear factor there. Like, they were afraid of Jordan. They couldn't play their hardest or knew that they had to play their hardest or there was going to be consequences from Jordan. I don't think that's the case here with the Chiefs. I think they just look at this guy and they go, wow, he's ready to go. We got to roll with him. We're going to go to war with this guy because he's that good. And boy, they're so hard to find. And when you find one, you never, ever, ever let him go. And he will have, who knows? He may have another 15 years in Kansas City. He's 28 years old. And nowadays, guys are playing longer. If he stays healthy, if he doesn't have serious injury, even when he has been hurt, he's been able to play. He's been able to heal quickly and get back on the field and playing through that ankle injury that he had a couple years ago. Those are things that you don't see from everybody, but he's that good. He's good enough to do that, and that's what we saw last night as he picked up his third Super Bowl MVP. Much more on the Super Bowl coming up, including the top commercials, at least the ones that I like. We'll get to those and more as we continue. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630. We're into hour two. We start every day at 9 o'clock. Tony comes up at 11 o'clock most days. When Tony's off, Mike Callow now fills in for him. We've given you a lot of the taste of the post game in the 9 o'clock hour. There's more to come this hour. I'll get to Patrick Mahomes' interview with the NFL Network. Also, McCole Hardman who caught the game-winning touchdown, talking to Scott Van Pelt, an unlikely hero. And the Super Bowl is full of these, including Timmy Smith, who was a one-hit wonder back in Super Bowl 22. It's Doug Williams who goes away with the MVP, and should have, for just an incredible second quarter where he threw 4 touchdown passes. It has been rated the second-best Super Bowl quarterback performance of all time. Steve Young, with the 6 touchdown passes that he threw 30 years ago in their blowout of the Chargers, is ranked number 1, but not just for his play on the field, but the historical significance of Doug Williams becoming the first African-American to start at quarterback in the Super Bowl and the first to win one. That was important. But Timmy Smith had 206 yards rushing that day. I mean, talk about a defenseless defense for the Denver Broncos, and Washington's offense was that good. But on a day where Doug Williams lights up the sky with touchdown passes, Timmy Smith runs for 206 yards. And, Timmy Smith was like a 6th-round pick out of Texas Tech, didn't play that much that year. But Joe Gibbs wanted to change things up. George Rogers had been the top back that year, and he started Timmy Smith in the Super Bowl, and the rest is history. But, the success went to his head. He showed up out of shape the next year and pretty much played himself out of the league and, probably threw away the opportunity to have a much better career. But he was one of those guys who did something that was absolutely incredible. We'll get to what McCole Hardman said to Scott Van Pelt last night later this hour. But I wanted to point out, if you haven't read it yet, it was a really nice piece put together by John Keim on ESPN.com. It's about players over the years who have scored Super Bowl touchdowns. And the touchdown that John Riggins scored in Super Bowl 17 is considered to be, and has been voted as, the greatest play in the history of the franchise. I mean, I was there. I was sitting in the opposite end zone in the Rose Bowl. I can remember it like it was yesterday. It was just unbelievable. The feeling in the stadium when they called the timeout, everybody knew on 4th and 1 that Riggins was going to get the ball. He got the ball, he shed Don McNeil, and he went all the way for a touchdown, and it cemented the game. So John, talked to players about their scores and how life changed for them because of it. And Riggins said, obviously, it did. It said it's one play that turns you into a folk hero. And, typical Riggins, he said it was just a matter of, am I going to go right or am I going to go left? He says, I look back at it now and I feel like I missed an opportunity to do Babe Ruth and point where I was headed. He probably could have done that, the way he was running. Now, maybe Miami stacks the box and all that, but there was no doubt he was going to get the first down. And then he went all the way for a touchdown after he shed McNeil. But he said about the play, quote, it turns you into a folk hero for one play. It was kind of similar to Joe Namath in a weird sort of way, that really the one moment when he said, I guarantee it, and they beat the Colts, I didn't buy a lot of drinks for a while and made you an instant celebrity on a very high level here in town. And if you've seen it, Ronald Reagan called the locker room. The presidents don't do this anymore. This used to be a big part of the postgame, that the president would congratulate the MVP. I'm sure Joe Biden didn't do that last night for Patrick Mahomes, but you see Reagan saying, at least for tonight, Ron is the president, but I'm the king. And he said later to John Keim for this piece, he said, the great satisfaction that you get from having success at a very high level, it speaks for itself. The Hall of Fame, and I don't want to disparage anybody, but it's a popularity contest, so that's all subjective. What happened in Pasadena was objective. And to me, that's the acid test or the crucible by which I think most people want to be measured. And one of the things he's talked about over the years was as he walked out of the stadium after he completed all the interviews that he had to do as the MVP and so forth, he was walking out with his friend Ron Saul. That was Ron Saul's last active year as a player. Ron passed away last year or two, but they were good friends, and the scoreboard was still lit up with the final score, and they stopped for a moment to look at it. Like, this is the moment, and you got to treasure it for the rest of your life. And in many ways, John has dined out off of that, but his personality has made him as successful as he has been as a broadcaster, as an actor, and just a kind of a man around town. He's kind of like our Joe DiMaggio. Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is putting himself in a different stratosphere right now. He's 28 years old. He's got 3 Super Bowl MVPs, 3 Super Bowl championships. If he walked away today, he'd be a first-ballot Hall of Famer, of course. But now he's got an opportunity to chase history. And there's never been a team that's won 3 straight Super Bowls. Miami went to 3 straight. They got blown out in the first one by Dallas. They had the undefeated season in number 2 when they beat Washington 14-7. And the following year, they beat the Minnesota Vikings for number 3 Super Bowls, but only 2 Super Bowl championships in a row. Now you got the chance for 3-peat. And they're all openly talking about it. It's not like, oh, well, we'll see when we get there. The key to these successful people, like Bill Belichick, like Nick Saban, they put the success that they just had behind them as quickly as they can, and they move on. Like Saban would say about his college team, every year it's a new team. It's like taking a new job every year, and you have to approach it that way. We'll see if they're able to do this. But Mahomes is clearly a special guy. He's the best quarterback by far in the game today, and now is in the conversation of best of all time. After his performance last night, which included a very ugly pick. I mean, that was bad, the pick that he threw in the third quarter when it looked like he was trying to force it into Kelce. He winds up the game 34 of 46, 333 yards, 2 touchdowns, an interception. He was sacked 3 times, and a quarterback rating of 99.3. Didn't top 100. It's not one of the great quarterback performances of all time. He did carry 9 times for 66 yards, and there was no bigger carry than the one he made on 4th and 1 with the game on the line to keep the drive alive in a shotgun. I always hate doing shotgun on short yardage, but they ran shotgun, and like a great player, and the great players all do this, they don't want to rely on anybody else. They put it in their own hands. He made the play. He picked up the first down. He kept the drive alive, and he won the game with a touchdown pass to McCole Hardman in overtime. This is the NFL Network set as Mahomes showed up after collecting his 3rd Super Bowl MVP trophy.
I know all rings are great.
Yeah.
Is this one the most satisfying based on where you were, losing 5 of 8 at one point in the regular season?
1,000%. I mean, just the attitude of the team to never give up, always believe, and to continue the fight. It's special, and I'm proud of the guys, man. I mean, we battled through and through all the way through the playoffs into the Super Bowl, and just like our whole season, it came down to the last play.
It seemed like you guys really used your Super Bowl experience throughout this playoffs to like almost be up 7 points at the beginning of almost every single game, right? Like, how important was experience to this journey this year?
It was extremely important. I mean, I think for me, just knowing when to take those chances and when not to. Obviously, I had the dumb interception that I threw at the beginning of the second half, and the defense trying to bail me out. But just knowing that even when it's not going the way that I want it to go, to not press, not push, and let the game come to me. And that's something that I think we did in the end, and we were able to score there at the end of the game.
The clock is running down in OT. There's 3 seconds left. You guys didn't use a timeout. I'm looking at Mike Robb. I'm almost in tears. I'm like, what is going on? And then you run the play. Was there any panic? Or was Coach Reid just like, look, run the play. We're going for it now?
No, we knew we were going to get one more play off. We wanted to do it down on this end zone. And I think it's funny. We go over these rules every single week, and they prepare us for these moments. And when we're in the meetings, I'm like, man, I cannot keep hearing these exact same things, but they prepared us for the overtime rules, knew all the different scenarios, and it keeps us calm and cool during those big moments.
Did it tick you off at some point during the season that there were a lot of people sitting on desks just like this that were saying, okay, the Chiefs might win the West, cute little story, great run. They can't beat Buffalo on the road or a Miami if they have to go there, let's say, or a Baltimore or something else. Did you use that as fuel?
I think you have to a little bit. I knew if we got in the tournament, man, we were going to be a hard team to beat. Just because I know the guys that we have and how hard we work. And even the games that we did lose, I felt like we were always right there in them. It was just a few plays here and there. And I'm always motivated, so it doesn't take much for me to get motivated. And I'm just glad that I'm sitting here with y'all right now.
Do you feel like this was the greatest run to the Super Bowl that you guys have had throughout your career?
100%. It's hard to say that one. We kept coming back and winning those games, so it wasn't the best run. But to be able to go on the road and prove people wrong, I'm so proud of the defense, man, and the whole team effort. Special teams, Harrison Butker hitting from about 70, offense stepping up when it's needed. This game just was the microcosm of our entire season. It was everybody. It wasn't just offense. It wasn't just defense. Everybody had to step up, and it was a heck of a run. I think it made us tougher for moments like right now.
I know you said on the CBS broadcast at the end of the game that, yes, it is a dynasty, but you've got more to do. Are you also chasing the quarterback greats of this game? Because there's been so much discussion about now Mahomes in there with Brady. You've got to hear some of it.
Yeah, I hear it. I mean, to me, it's always going to be tough because Brady beat me in the Super Bowl. That's one thing you'll always have in my head. But it gives me something to strive for every single day is chasing greatness. And whenever I'm tired, I might not want to work out. I know that I have to do it in order to be in these moments like this. And so I know it's a long ways away. And it's not something that I'm like, I need to get 7 Super Bowls right now. But it does give me that added motivation to continue to be great every single day.
Were you in the first half? You guys were struggling offensively. Were you stressing? What was going on? Talk about, because we were looking at your face. You looked just like this. There was no problems, no panic at all. We saw Travis, who's a very emotional. But what was it like, and how'd you guys go into halftime, make some adjustments, come out and make some plays?
Yeah, no. I mean, obviously I was upset. But with the young team that we have, I want to be calm, and the defense has kept holding them and stopping them. We're only down 10, we're only down 7. The game's not over. We just need one drive that's kind of spark us. And like you said earlier, being in these moments, I think it's prepared me not to push, and playing the way we've played this year has prepared me to not press. And getting in that halftime, I think the guys just said, let's be us. Like, if we're going to go down, let's be us and have excitement, have fun, have energy. The guys did that, and we were able to pull it through at the end.
All right, before we say goodbye, we know that you stressed this was indeed a business trip in a very fun city.
Oh, the trip's over. The business side of the trip is over. I'm finishing these interviews, and we're going to have a great time in Vegas.
Are you going to bring the troops back?
Oh, yeah, we're going to get everybody back. I got to go to Disneyland at like 8 in the morning. Dude, it might not be any sleep. I have a lot of sleep, but I'm going to enjoy this with my guys, and then have the parade in Kansas City, which is always a great time. And then we're on the roll, man. We're going for 3. Let's see what we can do.
Yeah, that's the thing. You got to put this behind you as quickly as possible. Lack of sleep. I guess they're getting ready to get on a plane now. He and his family. I doubt he's been to bed, and they do the traditional. It's either Disneyland, Disney World. I remember talking to Brad Johnson about this many years later. This is, I guess, 20 years ago when I was doing the Super Bowl pregame on ESPN. We had him on as a guest, and I was asking him about the Tampa Bay team that had won a couple of years earlier. Remember the Tampa Bay team that beat the Raiders in the Super Bowl? And I said, when did you get to sleep? And he said it was probably 2 full days later. Like he won the Super Bowl. He stays up all night, gets on a plane, goes to Disney World, and then finally gets home and gets to sleep. It's crazy. Probably got some naps on the plane and so forth and so on. But yeah, there's that. There's also this, that there's a measurement called DVOA, and they track these kind of things. They have determined that what the Chiefs did, and this was not the best of their 3 Super Bowl teams. They had injuries along the way. They had things that went against them. And they had the toughest road to the Super Bowl, toughest playoff path ever in the Super Bowl era. They had to win a home game against a red-hot Miami team. They had to win at Buffalo, and they had to win at Baltimore, which may have had the best team they've ever had. The Baltimore team, you have to prove it on the field, but on paper may have been the better of the 3 or of the 2 teams that won Super Bowls, the one in 2000 and the one in 2012, those 2 teams. They may have had a better team, but they were just better because of Patrick Mahomes, and that makes a difference. Now, what happens now, obviously he's coming back. There was some speculation that Travis Kelce is going to retire. He was yelling about three-peat when he was up on the trophy presentation, so they're coming back. Andy Reid, there's been speculation that he's going to go. There's even been a report that Eric Bieniemy is going back there next year and may, after a year, become the head coach, like kind of working as coach in training under Andy Reid for another year. It appears that he's going to be back, but we don't know. At 65, it could be possible. Bill Walsh did this. Bill Walsh walked away from the 49ers after they won a Super Bowl, and George Seifert won it with that team the following year. I don't think Andy Reid, it doesn't sound like he's a burnout guy. Walsh clearly was. But if you're thinking, and after listening to this, I'm convinced he's coming back. But if you're thinking that he might walk away, this is what Reid says about the position he's in as head coach of the Chiefs.
This is a tough profession, which we all know, competitive. I mean, the parity in this league is ridiculous. And so to watch your guys work and focus and all that, I mean, you just appreciate, I think the older you get, you probably appreciate that also. I mean, I appreciated the first one because it took me 1,000 years to get into a Super Bowl. So, but, and at least be able to hold that Lombardi trophy. So I appreciate every day that I have to do this. I work for a great owner and ownership family. And, you know, between Mark Donovan, Veach, and myself, we're lucky to be Kansas City Chiefs. And so that part feels good. And then we have a good locker room and we have good coaches.
Yeah, and that's the division, too, that probably will keep them around. Some of these burnout guys, they do everything. And here's a guy who understands that you have to have other people, and he's got, you know, good support staff. So I think he's probably going to come back, and he'll probably get a contract extension. He's making like $12 million a year. They may double that the way salaries are going in the NFL. But obviously he's worth it. 5 years, 3 Super Bowl championships, 4 Super Bowl appearances. Can't do much better than that. One other follow-up on this is the defense of the Chiefs, and that's being overlooked because we're talking so much about Patrick Mahomes. But Ryan Clark last night with Scott Van Pelt laid it out as to what the Chiefs were able to do defensively, especially in the second half, thanks to the great work of Steve Spagnuolo, who failed in his opportunity as a head coach. Got his shot with the Rams, didn't get it done. But as a defensive coordinator, you know, he's now in the conversation with the greats of all time, like Bill Arnsparger, Richie Pettibone, people like that who weren't necessarily good head coaches, but as a defensive coordinator, here's Clark laying out what the Chiefs were able to do with Spagnuolo calling the shots.
When you look at this game and the way it started, with the way Christian McCaffrey was moving the football up and down the field, you thought that this might be the day and the sort of game the San Francisco 49ers wanted to have. But as the game got tighter and Patrick Mahomes and that offense was able to move the ball, we saw Steve Spagnuolo dial up the pressure, and none bigger than late in the game when they're forcing Brock Purdy into a throwaway in the red zone. But you saw it throughout the second half. Trent McDuffie was amazing the entire day. We watched backers from the second level put pressure on Brock Purdy, and when the defensive line needed to step up, they did as well. Steve Spagnuolo once again showed us why he is the best big game defensive coordinator of our generation.
And Patrick Mahomes showed us why he's the best athlete in the world. It's absurd, man. You played this game. He does things that just can't possibly be this easy, and the tool belt is unlimited. What tools in the end were the ones that helped separate him and this team?
You know, if Patrick Mahomes was a superhero, he'd be Batman, because he has that dad bod, right? And he makes all the people at home feel like this isn't that difficult. Because Batman was just a regular man who chose to be a vigilante, but he had a utility belt. And in that utility belt, he had all kinds of gadgets and gadgets that could get the job done. That's what Patrick Mahomes has. If he needs to use his legs like the 2 times on the last drive, he can do that. If he has to get out of the pocket and extend plays, he can do that. And early on in the game, we saw that he can roll to his left, throw back across his body to the right side of the field, and hit McCole Hardman in stride. He is the best quarterback that has ever played this game. No, I'm not saying he's reached Tom Brady yet, because Tom Brady has 7. But when you look at the start of Patrick Mahomes' career, we can say we've never seen nothing like it, and it will not be hyperbole. When the San Francisco 49ers didn't get that ball in the end zone, we all knew it. You said it before we came on. Patrick Mahomes is inevitable. You have to go kill him, because if you don't, you only get one chance, and you better be like Iron Man and take it, because if he gets the ball back, you're done.
Yeah, and that's the way I felt after the San Francisco kicked the field goal in overtime. You got Patrick Mahomes, you got unlimited time there. They don't have to worry about, time running out, and you give him the opportunity to win the game with a touchdown. He's probably going to do that. As far as what Clark said, and I think this is right, that he's the best to ever do it, I would make this comparison. Magic Johnson won 5 when he was with the Lakers, and he won them all with Kareem. So he had another player. You have to have that in the NBA. By the end of 1993, Michael Jordan had won 3. If you looked at the 2 players, to me, Jordan was clearly the better player. I think that's probably what you're looking at here. To take nothing away from Tom Brady, because 7 is unbelievable, and he didn't have weapons like this. He didn't. He didn't have great wide receivers. Good team, great team, maybe, but what Patrick Mahomes is doing and the way he plays the position, you might say that he's the best of all time. He's just not the winningest of all time, and may never get there, because Brady's longevity is also part of the picture. To be able to play at the level he played at in his mid-40s. I don't know if we'll see that. Russell Wilson was talking about that a couple of years ago. Clearly, that didn't happen. He's on his way out of the league. Patrick Mahomes at 28, it's a long way to go. Got to win 4 just to match Brady. But multiple Super Bowls are probably in his future. And if he stays healthy, he could be around for a long time doing what he's doing. Coming up, we'll get to what Nicole Hardman said about his journey, starting this year with the Jets and winding up as the hero in the Super Bowl, catching the game-winning touchdown. And more from Josh Harris and this conversation that he had with Chick Hernandez on Channel 9 as to where the team is and how they wound up with the coach that they wound up with. Stay with us. It's the Andy Pollin Show, ESPN 630.
The Andy Pollin Show on ESPN 630, the sports capital.
I get to my favorite Super Bowl commercials in about 20 minutes. Tony's coming up at 11 o'clock, and I'm pretty sure he'll be talking about the commercials as well. We're yakking more about the game and the various stories within the story of the game. The number one story is obviously Patrick Mahomes and the 3 Super Bowl MVPs that he now has, the 3 Super Bowl championships over a 5-year period, 28 years old. He makes $500 million. He's got investments in various teams, including the Kansas City Royals. He's got commercials. He's doing well. Nobody has to hold the benefit for him. But the lesser lights, they are very, very interesting stories, including 2 wide receivers, one for San Francisco and one for Kansas City. And you would really have to know your football to know about Juwan Jennings for the 49ers and Mecole Hardman for the Kansas City Chiefs. Jennings is a third-year wide receiver, and, everybody thinks of, the McCaffreys of the world and, the bigger name players that play for them, though George Kittle gave him basically nothing yesterday, 2 catches for 4 yards. But Juwan Jennings would have been a very, very unlikely Super Bowl MVP. And if San Francisco had won the game, you'd have to give it to him. I mean, he threw a touchdown pass, and he caught a touchdown pass. The only player in Super Bowl history who had done that prior to yesterday was Nick Foles, the unlikely hero for the Philadelphia Eagles, the backup quarterback who upset the New England Patriots with the Phillies special, catching the touchdown pass. Jennings caught 4 passes, 42 yards, and threw for 21 yards and a touchdown, though I think Phil Simms pointed out at halftime, you could have easily called the illegal lineman downfield. They didn't do that. The play stood up, so it stood up as a touchdown. And asked after the game, he had a pretty good line after the game about coming so close because he would have been the MVP, that it didn't happen and losing the game. He said, oh, man, anybody got a nail to step on? That's how much it hurts. And, you think about unlikely heroes, David Tyree, who I think never caught a pass again after the Super Bowl, caught like 10 or 12 for his entire career, the helmet catch. Timmy Smith with the 200 yards in the Super Bowl 22. Desmond Howard, who had been cut earlier in the year, claimed by the Packers, and in what probably should have been the Brett Favre MVP game, he was the MVP as a kick returner, took a kickoff back for a touchdown. Larry Brown, remember, he was on his way to being cut by the Dallas Cowboys and had 2 interceptions against the Pittsburgh Steelers. So, this would have been a Juwan Jennings type of game, and I'm pretty sure that he would have won the MVP because the stats for Brock Purdy were okay. They were not great. What did he throw for? I got his stats here somewhere. But it was not a great. Here it is. 23 of 38, 255 yards, 1 touchdown, and he was sacked once. So he had a quarterback rating of 89.3. So you'd have to give it to them. Meantime, Mecole Hardman, he's not going to be the MVP of the game. That's going to be Mahomes, but he makes the touchdown catch. He makes the touchdown catch there to win the game. He had 3 catches for 57 yards. One of them was 52 yards, but the last one was the biggest one. And here's a guy who was with Kansas City last year, was not re-signed, goes to the Jets, and this is what good general managers do. Good general managers look around the league, and they don't necessarily at the deadline look at huge pieces that they want to add. It's small pieces that they want to add. And by the way, adding Chase Young turned out to be okay for the 49ers. And Young, who was terrible in the championship game against Detroit, He, for a while, was looking like the MVP, right? He forced an intentional grounding and had a sack. He made himself some money last night. He's going to become a free agent. But Mecole Hardman, not re-signed by Kansas City, goes to the Jets. They bring him back in October. Didn't give up much, maybe a low-round draft pick. And this is Peter King writing about what happened on the touchdown play. Andy Reid called the play into Mahomes' helmet, and Mahomes said to the huddle, Tiger 12, Tom and Jerry right, gun trips, right bunch, F shuttle. The last part was the corn dog motion from the last Super Bowl, speed in, speed out. Hardman ran the precise jet motion right to left into the formation, then quickly turned around to catch the game winner. He's wide open. This year, instead of calling the play corn dog, Reid called it Tom and Jerry, reasons unknown and unexplained. We built corn dog saying, well, for sure they'll cover corn dog because we called it twice. They've seen it. Nope. Hardman wasn't wide open, but he was open, really open, and Kansas City had its third Super Bowl in 5 years. Mecole Hardman putting on the headset after the game, talking to Scott Van Pelt on ESPN.
Hey, man, I literally blacked out, man. I ran the play, and when I caught the football, I blacked out, and I seen Pat running towards me. I'm like, oh, yeah, we just won it. And it came reality and a feeling that's so undescribable.
It kind of looked like that, like when you're holding the ball up, like in your brain, right? You're trying to process, wait, did we win? I mean, I get that the rules are wild, but like very quickly it's obvious that the confetti's falling. And then what's the experience like at that point?
Oh, it's undescribable. I mean, it's a great feeling, you know, winning this game. You know, the Super Bowl, it's celebrate with your teammates. It don't get no better than that. And just to do it in that fashion, overtime coming back down, I think, 10 points, I believe, and winning in this fashion, it don't get no better.
And for you personally, every man on that team has his own journey to this moment. But yours, as we know, you were there, and then you weren't there to start, and now you end there. When you reflect on all that your year was, your personal journey, what's the most satisfying page in the story?
Just Kansas City welcomed me back and actually traded for me. You know, it was a lot of ups and downs in the beginning with the Jets, and now that, you know, Kansas City, you know, Beach coming back and get me, I couldn't appreciate it more. And Chiefs Kingdom welcomed me back with open arms. Still had some ups and downs, you know, but just to end it this way, I don't think it, you know, I want it any other way.
The story from the outside looking in, we see the challenges, the struggles at times, but the group has done it, right? You all have done this before, and now you've done it again. Could you explain to us sort of the level of belief that existed within your locker room about what you might be able to do throughout these playoffs?
Oh, our confidence was through the roof. You know, we had the belief that we can beat any team. You know, we went to Buffalo, beat Buffalo, went to Baltimore, beat Baltimore. It's like, what else do y'all want to see from us to tell you that we actually can, you know, win the whole thing? And I believe everybody just, you know, down us, making us underdogs. They just, you know, add fuel to the fire. So our confidence, I believe we knew we could do exactly what we wanted to do as long as we came together as a team and do the right things.
How much of that confidence is born out of the fact that you've got 15 under center, and when push comes to shove, he mostly just does not lose?
Hey, man, Pat is one of them ones, man. You know, especially in a situation like this, he done it, you know, time and time again. And I guess I don't know how many times he got to prove to y'all that he's that guy. And whenever we get to a trust situation like this, we all looking at Pat and his decision making. So whatever he want to do, we good with it because he done proved himself, you know, day in, day out. And we look at him as a leader and we trust him whatever he want to do, and we're gonna go from there.
I don't feel like people doubted. I mean, I'll own this myself, Mecole. I just said I just want to see the guy go on the road at some point. Don't make faces at me like I thought your guy wasn't great. I just wanted to see you guys go on the road at some point, right? Because I think the best in any sport at some point need to look adversity in the eye and then stare it down. You guys clearly did that. But I don't feel like anyone was acting like he was anything other than who he is. Is that fair?
I don't know. Maybe not you, but it's definitely the people that was like, he never played on these road games, and can he do this and do that? It's like, man, I don't know how many times he got to prove it to y'all. But luckily, we went on 2 road games this year with Baltimore and the Bills in Baltimore. So hopefully, you know, that narrative kind of slow down a little bit now.
Okay, Mecole, we will never, ever doubt Patrick Mahomes on the road again, right? Okay. And I always thought that was a little bit overblown anyway. Good quarterbacks are going to win on the road, and if you're in a Super Bowl, which Mahomes had been in 3 times and won 2 of them, that, you're playing on the road. It's supposedly a neutral field, but, away from the friendly confines of Arrowhead Stadium, they could get it done. Hardman, it's somewhat similar, the story. I have to do this tomorrow. I'll look it up, but all the details. But Phil McConkey, who played at the Naval Academy, had the 5-year commitment. In those days you couldn't go to the NFL. They allow it now. But McConkey was a great receiver at Navy and wanted to become a pilot, but would get airsick. Was not able to be a pilot. So he fulfilled his commitment and then got his shot with the Giants, an undrafted free agent, made the team, played with them for a little while. And I forget how he wound up in Green Bay during the 86 season. He was either traded there or they had released him the year before, and he wound up. And then he winds up back with the Giants during the 86 seasons, like a couple of games in. He might have been released by the Packers. And he becomes an important figure on that team. I think much more over the course of the season than Hardman has been for the Chiefs, though he was an addition. But here he is. He comes back from Green Bay to New York with the Giants and becomes not just a great punt returner and a wide receiver, but an emotional leader for that team. And, sometimes you look at unlikely heroes, and Mecole Hardman turned out to be one of those for the Kansas City Chiefs. And unfortunately for Jawan Jennings, a great performance, touchdown pass and a touchdown catch, and a total of 4 catches for 42 yards. He winds up as a footnote, a great performance that doesn't get rewarded with the Super Bowl championship. Let me jump back to more of this Josh Harris interview that he did with Chick Hernandez last night. It aired after the game, and they aired it this morning on Channel 9. He talked about the search for a stadium, talking about the possibility that it won't be funded by taxpayer money, and how that's all going to work out, but he's leaving open the possibility it'll be in D.C. or Maryland or Virginia. They have not narrowed that down yet. This is about the coaching search. And you know what happened with the Ben Johnson situation as they were flying to Detroit to interview him for the head coaching job, and they find out in the air that he's not interested anymore, doesn't want to take a head coaching job. And so that's how they wind up with Dan Quinn. This was, again, part of the interview, Chick asking about that process.
You're on your way out there. You find out that Ben Johnson's pulled his name out of the process. Is that why you're in the air?
Yeah, internet works up in the air. Listen, we identified Dan very early. I mean, you heard a lot of it up there in terms of his ability to lead, to motivate. There's a small, as he was talking, I was thinking about, there's a small fraternity of players, there's a small fraternity of coaches, and to be elite, you've got to attract elite people, right? And so his ability to attract those people really stood out to us. His knowledge of football, I mean, obviously, most noticeably on the defensive side, but generally across the whole team, his ability to work with Adam, and you heard a lot of that too. So we identified him, and listen, there were a lot of qualified candidates. We went through a very thorough process, and we ended up with our guy.
Yeah, well, of course they're going to say that, and I think I'm not one of those that says, "Oh God, this is terrible." I think that this is okay. This is more on the process, and this was, he's hired coaches before in hockey and in the NBA, but here he is describing to Chick how this was different in hiring a coach in the NFL.
You have to sit through all of the meetings, the way it's set up, and so it was quite extensive for me. And also given the whole situation, once you have a mature organization, for example, in Philly, I met the last 2 head coach candidates, but here I met all the coaching candidates, and so it took up, a lot of time, but I'm glad that I got to be involved at a very deep level. I learned a lot, and I got to know. We were very deep with the interviews, and we really figured out where people were coming from.
Okay. And the final thing is the kid from Chevy Chase, who now owns the most important franchise in this area, and did he allow himself a moment to sit back and reflect?
I am killing myself for the city. I'm working all the time, but I do that every day. I'm thankful every day for all the opportunities that life has availed me of. I'm, a religious person and appreciate everything that's happened to me, and I pinch myself every day, but only for a few moments, and then I go back to work.
Okay, and the honeymoon is on, so whatever missteps you may have in the next years, months, whatever, people are forgiving. Look, the main thing is he's not Dan Snyder, right? He's not Dan Snyder. So with the Super Bowl in the rearview mirror, we can now look ahead to the draft and whatever else they're going to do in free agency and what the season is going to look like in 2024 for the still Washington Commanders. In this conversation, which they put up online this morning, it was about 11 minutes that Chick talked to him. Did not ask him about the name, but it was curious in the news conference when they introduced Dan Quinn that Harris did not use the name Commanders. He referred to them as Washington Football. So there you go. And and I don't think there's anything wrong with this, has frequently referred to them as the Redskins when they were the Redskins. That was their name at the time that he's describing. So we put the Super Bowl in the rearview mirror. We look ahead to the draft and other things and other good times ahead hopefully for the Washington Commanders and football. But it never dies, right? The NFL controls the calendar. Really the only month that they take off is July. So even though we're in February, there's lots to talk about as we move ahead, and there'll be plenty to discuss as we get together tomorrow. So enjoy the rest of this day. Tony is coming up next, and I'll see you back here tomorrow at 9 a.m.